Hello, fellow Salem watchers. It's your old friend here, the one who's been glued to Days of Our Lives through more resurrections, switched babies, and buried alive schemes than I care to count. For decades, I've sat in my living room coffee going cold, yelling at the screen while Vivian Alamain pulled yet another rabbit out of her designer hat. And now we're staring at what might be the most deliciously twisted mother-son reckoning since Stefano locked someone in a cage and called it family bonding. Today, we're diving deep into the latest chapter of the Probablement in Komingsky's DiMera-Alamain saga, because if the rumors and the clues on screen are pointing where I think they are, Vivian didn't just die, she was put in the ground by the very son she tried to control one last time. Let's start at the beginning of this particular nightmare, shall we? We all remember Stefan DiMera's desperate attempt to win Gabi back. The man had already survived being shot, brainwashed, and written off the show once before. But love especially, the kind that burns between a DiMera and a Hernandez has a way of dragging people back to Salem even when every rational bone in their body says run. Stefan didn't leave town. He was right there, flowers in hand, heart on his sleeve, ready to rebuild what Vivian and everyone else had tried to tear apart. But Vivian Alamain has never been one to let her children have lives of their own. She's the original puppet master. The woman who once faked her own death so convincingly that half of Salem sent flowers to an empty casket. So when she saw Stefan inching toward happiness with Gabi, she did what any self-respecting Alamain matriarch would do. She sent her henchmen. Picture it, the shadowy alley behind the DiMera mansion. The kind of place where so many secrets have died and been reborn. Stefan's on his way to Gabi. Maybe even humming one of those old romantic tunes the show loves to play during these moments when headlights cut through the darkness. Tires screech. Men in black emerge like ghosts. A struggle, a muffled shout, and just like that, Stefan vanishes from Salem's radar. Vivian didn't even bother with a clean getaway. She wanted the family to know she was the one pulling the strings. For weeks we were left wondering kidnapping murder, another one of her re-education programs in some remote Alamanian compound. The tension was thick enough to cut with one of Victor's old steak knives. Then came the bombshell that had us all reaching for the tissues and the remote at the same time. Stefan DiMera was declared dead, not missing dead. And who signed the paperwork with all the theatrical flourish of a queen signing a death warrant? None other than his own mother, Vivian. The woman who gave him life looked straight into the camera, voice dripping with that signature mix of grief and glee, and told the world her son was gone. The funeral was a DiMera masterpiece, black veils, whispered accusations, EJ sneering in the corner while Gabi collapsed in genuine agony. We watched the coffin lowered into the ground at the Salem cemetery, the same plot where so many dead characters have clawed their way back to life. And for a moment, even the most jaded longtime viewers wondered if this time it was real. But Days of Our Lives never lets us rest easy. Just when we thought the chapter was closed, another coffin lid creaked open, this time for Vivian herself. The news hit like a thunderclap. Vivian Alamain was declared dead in her ancestral homeland of Alamania. The death certificate was filed, the paperwork pristine, the kind of official document that even Salem's finest forgers would envy. And then, in one of those breathtaking long shots the show does so well, we saw it, the tombstone. Cold marble, fresh flowers laid across the base. The engraving sharp and final Vivian Alamain, beloved mother. Gone, but never forgotten. Or so they want us to believe. Here's where the drama shifts from heartbreaking to downright Machiavellian. Because if you've followed this family as long as I have, you know that no death in Salem is ever simple. And the more I turn this puzzle over in my mind, the more convinced I become that Stefan DiMera is not only alive, he's the one who made sure his mother never drew another breath. Think about it. Stefan spent his entire life under Vivian's thumb. She manipulated his love life, faked his paternity, and when he finally tried to break free, she had him dragged away like a disobedient child. Longtime fans will remember how Stefan once looked at his mother with something close to worship until the betrayals piled up like bodies in the DiMera basement. Revenge in this town isn't just a dish best served cold. It's served with a side of dramatic irony and a forged death certificate. What if Stefan survived that alleyway ambush? What if he turned the tables, followed his mother's own playbook, and decided that the only way to be free was to bury the woman kept digging him up. The theory gets even juicier when you factor in the twin. Yes, Stefan has had a brother. Jake DiMera, the rough-around-the-edges mechanic who was gunned down in a robbery a few years back. Jake's death was tragic, senseless, and crucially, never fully resolved in the way these things usually are on days. We saw the body we mourned, but we never saw a DNA test broadcast on the courthouse steps. Vivian, ever the opportunist, could have had one of her loyal servants exhume Jake's remains and swap them into Stefan's coffin. The DNA match everyone keeps harping on, it would still read as Stefan's because the twins shared the same genetic code. It's the perfect crime in a town that specializes in imperfect ones. While the good people of Salem cried over an empty, or rather, wrongly filled grave, the real Stefan could have been halfway across the world, or worse, right here in the shadows watching his mother's empire crumble. And let's talk about how he might have done it, because the show has trained us to expect nothing less than gothic horror wrapped in couture. Maybe he poisoned her slowly, something untraceable. The kind of toxin Vivian herself used on half a dozen victims back in the 90s. Picture her in that lavish Alamanian villa sipping her evening tea, complaining about her ungrateful children, while the toxin crept through her veins like one of Stefano's old vendettas. Or even more chilling, and I wouldn't put it past the writer Stefan, could have buried her alive, not in a dramatic dirt pit, but in a sealed mausoleum chamber, oxygen ticking down, while she realized too late that the sun she tried to erase had become her mirror image. The flowers on the tombstone, maybe they're not mourning. Maybe they're a taunt from the son who finally won. Gabby's reaction alone could fill an entire week of episodes. She's already shattered once over Stefan's death. If she learns he's alive and responsible for Vivian's end, will she run to him or run for the hills? And what about the rest of the DiMera clan? EJ would sell his soul for the CEO chair. Kristen would cackle with delight at the family dysfunction. And who knows where Chad fits into this now that the body count keeps rising. The corporate intrigue at DiMera Enterprises is about to hit fever. Pitch and I, for one, am here for every boardroom betrayal and whispered confession. This isn't just a murder mystery, folks. It's the culmination of decades of toxic parenting, forbidden love, and the kind of twisted loyalty that only exists in Salem. Vivian spent her life playing God with her children's fates. Stefan, if he's truly behind this, has finally stepped into his father's shoes, not Stefano's, but the darker, more personal role of the child who decides the parent's story ends on his terms. So here's my prediction, delivered with all the certainty of someone who's watched this show. Since the days when Roman was a Roman and not a Brady, Stefan DiMera is alive, breathing, and very much the architect of Vivian's demise. The death certificate in Alamania is a smokescreen. The tombstone, a prop, and the DNA in that coffin belongs to a brother who never got a proper goodbye. Vivian's death is connected to Stefan in the most intimate, most horrifying way possible. Blood calling to blood. Betrayal answered with betrayal. Now I turn it over to all of you, my fellow Days diehards. Do you think Stefan is out there right now, plotting his triumphant return to Gabby's arms and the DiMera throne? Or is there another layer we haven't peeled back yet, maybe a third party? Maybe another dead character pulling strings from the wings? Drop your theories in the comments. Because if there's one thing we've learned after all these years, it's that in Salem, the only thing more shocking than a death is the moment someone kicks the lid off their own coffin and walks back into the light. Until next time, stay dramatic, stay suspicious. And whatever you do, don't drink the tea at the Alamain mansion. I'll be right here, remote in hand, waiting for the next jaw-dropping reveal. Because on Days of Our Lives, no one stays dead for long unless, of course, the writers finally decide the story demands it. And this time feels personal.